Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Basement Radio Arcade Podcast. Tonight, we have a very special guest, David Jaffe. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce his name. Welcome. Yes.
I think that is a great Barack Obama. You did really well.
Great Barack Obama. Oh my God.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for being here, man.
I just want to point out that ever since I became a regular member of this podcast, I have introduced it more than Enrique has. So that has to stop, Enrique. You need to reclaim ownership of your podcast.
I just want to say something real quick. You do such a great job doing Christopher Walken that it's just, it's kind of like our calling card, if you will, you know.
Well, if you want, I'll spend the rest of the podcast just looking like Robert De Niro.
There you go. Maybe you can do some Vito Corleone later on. So
is Enrique coming to us from like inside a fucking Pacific Rim? where is he?
Whenever Enrique's on camera, he looks like he is about to commit his third murder.
You realize the reason
is that like an ISIS flag behind him?
He's bringing the heat early. He's the Basement Radio Arcade Podcast. He's literally in the basement.
It's just like we see Mike, and he's like, it's someone clearly has cleaned whatever room he's in, and there you can see the vacuum streaks on the floor and stuff. And then you go, and it's like he's got like a bunch of children tied up in behind him or something. I don't know where he is. So I'm a little worried. But hey,
that's amazing.
I'm in the basement, hence Basement Radio, and I tend to broadcast in the dark.
I always feel like
that much is clear.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it looks like he's in like one of those horror movies where like he's on the camera and he's like, "There's something in the house," and then the screen goes staticky and like something jerks him off the camera. Like I keep expecting to see like
it's Blair Witch is what it is.
Yeah.
I think it's more like I keep waiting for a pop up to say like, enter a $1.99 and I'll kill this person. That's a weird snuff site or something, but anyway.
Oh my God. Well, David, thank you for
zombie.
Yeah, David, thank you for joining us tonight, man. We appreciate having you on the podcast, man. And everyone, officially welcome to the Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, the podcast for gaming enthusiasts worldwide. Our subs show this, but that's okay. We are the No Subs, No Problems podcast. We drink beer, shoot the shit, and talk video games. So, I want to quickly welcome my panel. We have returning with us Al Alcoholocaust. Al, how's it going tonight, man?
Good, man. Glad to be here. Excited about our guest. Let's get the party started.
I hear that, man. We have B Money 101 from the Inner Circle podcast. B Money, what's up, man?
Not much, man. David's in the building, so it's a good day.
It is a good day. We have Eric Jackson broadcasting live from the back of a Maybach in Biscayne Bay. Eric, what's up, man?
What's going on, guys? How's everybody doing?
We have John, our resident Marv Albert, Christopher Walken, a.k.a. What else do we call you? Oh, the London Gentleman?
Yep, here I am. And also for Dave, who probably doesn't know, and for anybody in the audience who might know, I also run my own podcast, the sister podcast of BRAP. Super Deformed Gamescast, which goes live every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I do want to point out real quick, Enrique, that this Friday, for anybody who is on the West Coast at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, that's also midnight Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be live streaming some Uncharted 4 multiplayer with Quentin Cobb from Naughty Dog. So please join us and check that out.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And we have Mike Mullis joining us tonight from NLG. He is the senior citizen of the podcast.
God.
He looks great for 85. Has done. I'm sorry, Mike. What's going on, man?
Mike says, I remember when I was a young man of 36 when the NES was released. And
Mike was 50 when Twisted Metal first came out.
At 36, I was playing Atari 2600. What are you talking about? What's going on, everybody?
Not much, man.
It's a pleasure to be on tonight. Just so that I'll give my plug since he gives his. We're the Sunday night late podcast, Sunday nights at 10, and if you hadn't already checked it out, This past Sunday, we had the great Christian Allen on our show, and at some point, as soon as I email your assistant, David, we will have you as well.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah. So, so actually, David, Christian Allen wanted me to tell you. He said hello. I was on a podcast with him and Mike on Sunday.
Tell David he said hello.
Someone said hello to me?
Christian
Allen.
I don't know who that is.
Okay. Oh.
Dissed.
No, not that. I'm sure. I mean, I don't know.
Let's see. He worked on Ghost Recon 2, Summit Strike, Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter. He has,
okay.
Cerealin is his company now.
Okay, I don't think we've ever met though, so I don't like know him as a friend. But I mean, it's I'm sure I would like him. It sounds like a nice colleague, but I don't think we've ever met.
Oh, he's a great guy. So he's a fan then. He was basically he must have fanboyed out for a second.
Well, I really like those games you just mentioned, so I would consider myself a fan of his work as well. Then.
Awesome. So, David, real quick before we get into, we brought you on tonight to have you talk about Drawn to Death, which is a new game you guys are working on. Before we get into that, though, for some of the viewers, and I'd be surprised if there were some viewers who didn't know who you were, but for those who don't, if you could kind of just walk us through, your career, how you got into gaming development, early on.
Well, I mean, so I started as a tester back when Sony Computer Entertainment was called Sony ImageSoft, and that was when they made, they were making games for Nintendo and for Sega Genesis and Sega CD, doing just utter shit. I mean, we had, they would, most of the games were abysmal. There was like Sewer Shark and Dracula from Sega CD.
Oh, blasphemy! Shut your mouth, sir.
I remember Sewer Shark.
Sewer Shark was. Come on, man.
Wasn't Sewer Shark the one where the guy was like, "How do you like that dog meat?"
Dog meat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, okay. All that really should do though is just prove the theory, or prove not even a theory, but prove the point that, when you're like 8, you'll love anything that's put in front of you. There's nothing about Sewer Shark that's redeemable at all. No. It's a horrible.
You're cutting me deep, man.
Well, no, your nostalgia is appreciated, but come on, it's terrible.
It's awful.
But that aside, though, I mean, so let's just you get a gimme on that one. But I mean, we were doing Cliffhanger for the Game Boy, which if you ever want to just look at the most like. Just the word sad that comes to mind. Screenshot. Google Cliffhanger for the Game Boy, and it's like, what is this? These were horrific games, and we got a Gem out, we got Hook out, we got Spawn for the Super Nintendo out, Equinox, Solstice we got out. Some people like the baseball game that was done, but overall it was just a company, I believe, that was founded in order to synergize with the movies that the Sony studios had coming out. And deservedly so, the games were ridiculed and they didn't do well. And I worked as a tester, and I very quickly sort of worked my way out of that department and into sort of producing, which was really to design. And at the time, they didn't really have anything called a designer. So I was a producer, an assistant producer, but I was really just doing design work. And so the first game me and my design partner worked on was called Mickey Mania, which was on a number of the older 16-bit systems and Sega CD and whatnot. And I did that with Traveler's Tales, who obviously have gone on to great, success with the Lego games and whatnot. And from there, we just kept, bugging people to give us design shots, and we would keep pitching ideas. And I remember I got the, so Twisted Metal was a game that I did, and I remember Mike Guillaume, who was my design partner at the time, I had sort of come up with the high concept for Twisted Metal, and we had both kind of talked about what would become Warhawk, and it was literally a coin toss. Like, our boss was like, well, which one of you, we need a designer on each, which one do you want? And we're like, I don't know, here, we'll flip a coin. So I ended up getting Twisted Metal, and Mike ended up getting Warhawk, and so I did a bunch of those, and Black, and then we moved on to God of War, and then I started a company called Eat Sleep Play, which did a game called Calling All Cars, and Twist Metal PlayStation 3, and then I started a company now, which we have called the Bartlett Jones Supernatural Detective Agency, and we're doing a game called Drawn to Death right now for PlayStation 4. So a lot of stuff.
Wild ride.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
So since you love your old games so much, I'm going to send this over to you for...
Well, listen. I didn't design that. I may have a credit on there as tester. I know my credits for tester. Skyblazer I thought was great. I think I have a tester credit for. But like Three Ninjas Kickback and
that one I'll give you.
Last Action Hero for the Game Gear. I mean, these things, y'all.
Oh, wow.
And then the big deal was like, we got some new scripts guys coming in. You're gonna love working on these games. And it was like a movie called No Escape with Ray Liotta. I mean, it was like, who is making these decisions about? Yeah, let's spend $1 million to get the rights to a Ray Liotta movie. I mean, it's just bizarre. You know what the gamer kids like these days, fellas? Certainly Ray Liotta's got to be in the top 5 of celebrities that really get gamers excited. So sure, fuck it, let's do it. I mean, it's crazy. So, but it was a good learning experience, and I needed a job. I was out of college, and that was pretty much, as silly as I make it out to seem, it really was an amazing opportunity because I'd come out to LA to make movies, and whether that would have been a career or not, who knows, but it wasn't going anywhere at the time. And the game thing kind of came along, and it's been a great career. So I'm always grateful to Rich Robinson, who gave me that job, as much as I, from the safety of, 20 plus years, I can mock it now. But it was a great experience.
That's awesome.
That is
Very
awesome.
cool, man.
Great story, too.
Yeah. Now, nostalgia-wise, I remember Spawn being a really fun game. May not be the same.
Yeah, I mean, Spawn was cool, and again, Skyblazer I think still holds up, and such as it is, and there were some great, there were some really great games we did work on. Most were shit, but when you just think back to that era, though, there were great games in general. I still miss tremendously. I mean, there are the obvious gems like Zelda and Zombie Ate My Neighbors and stuff, and then there were just the kind of the forgotten ones that. There was like an Indiana Jones Super Nintendo cart that like took all 3 movies, and basically it wasn't a great game, but if you were an indie fan, they captured that really well. There was just some really cool stuff back then. So
yeah, definitely.
So David, you mentioned you went to you tried to get into film, or you were in film school. You tried to get into movies.
Well, I was at USC, and I never got into their film school. I made movies all throughout high school and junior high, and I made movies during college, and I actually created some TV shows that I sold to Universal, and I sold to New Line. But as you may or may not know, just because you sell your TV show doesn't mean it gets made. So I thought that was going to be my path, and I was waiting. And while I was waiting, I needed money, and so I took the job at Sony. When they offered it, I was like, I remember at the time look, money's money, and I'm not mocking the amount, but at the time, like 21 years old with no prospects. And they're saying, hey, we'll pay you $20,000 a year, which is what it was. And I was just like, I couldn't believe. And I was like, oh my God, $20,000 a year, And, it was just amazing to me that I hadn't thought about those times in a long time. So it's cool. It's cool to think back.
So how much with movies and everything, and the interest in movies, how much of that played an influence in the type of games you've made?
It played a lot at the beginning, in the sense that I think what I learned from making movies, and like I said, I had sold TV shows, so I had a lot of experience, going into all of the major studios and pitching and meeting with executives and all this stuff, and so I had a much more executive-y, designer-y, director-y centric background than your average tester. And in that, I think it allowed me to kick open a bunch of doors a lot easier than it was for other people. Because I could, I remember when we got Mickey Mania, all the big-wig Disney executives came in, and I was just a tester, but I was super comfortable and had a lot of experience pitching, and so we just kind of nailed that pitch and got Sony that deal and stuff. And so I think that helped, and I also think the fact that for a long time at the beginning of my career, I was very interested in the idea of merging movies and games together. I've since walked away from that, but there was a time when that was seemed incredibly exciting to me, and I could definitely speak enough of the language of both mediums that I think it was easier for me than some to sort of express the vision that we were going for in a variety of these games.
David, I have a question if you don't mind.
I do mind. I came onto your podcast, but I don't want to. Great question.
Well, then,
now that I've begun speaking, your job is to listen. Yeah. What can I do for you? Go ahead.
So I'm curious. Damn man, it burns. Like it burns deep within my loins. I was wondering, speaking about movies or talking about movies, were there ever plans for like a God of War or a Twisted Metal?
Yeah, there absolutely. I think the one that probably got farthest was God of War, to the point that they paid an Oscar-nominated screenwriter, a great screenwriter named David Self. They paid the guy $1 million to write a draft. I read the draft. We gave notes. I remember the weekend they sent it out to Daniel Craig after Casino Royale that he was in.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. He might be interested in Kratos. And,
well, hold on. They wanted Daniel Craig to play Kratos?
Well,
that's crazy.
Well, in Hollywood, though, it's less. Not say Hollywood's much different than any other business, but in any kind of high stakes financial business, people want to hedge their bets, and I think they were less interested. If somebody were to say, "Here's this unknown actor who hasn't really proven themselves, who totally captures the persona of the character, and here is an actor who may have to sort of adjust the character to fit who he is as a performer, but this actor on this other side has a lot of experience opening movies, and we know he can, he's dependable and all that," they're going to go with the second choice every time, unless they're banking on a director's vision that is so strong that they'll let him cast whoever they need to. So I never thought what I liked about Daniel Craig when it was presented to me, not that I ever had any actual say over it, but they said, "Hey, what do you think?" Was while he looked nothing like Kratos, and I think physique-wise, who knows, could they have done something? Probably. But there was a sort of gravitas to him and a pathos to him that I think he could have done. So, so you could go with Vin Diesel, which is, at the time, was the obvious choice.
That would have been the obvious choice.
Yeah, I would have gone.
And I think that would have worked as you can check the box, he kind of can do the role. But we were, to the credit of the people who made who optioned the movie, they were the same guys who had done the new Batman with Christopher Nolan. They weren't in it just to sort of check a box and go, "Look, we're making mass market, digestible, forgettable entertainment." They were trying to genuinely make a good movie. Mm-hmm. And so, but I never, in all of this time, I had meetings and all this stuff, but I never expected any of these, that or Twisted Metal, which is kind of come and gone and come again and then gone again as a possibility. I never expect any of these things to go.
I just feel like David. I feel like he would have been like. I feel like he would have been like the most polite, considerate Kratos ever. Like I just sitting there. I imagine him like on Gaia's back, like climbing up Mount Olympus, and he gets up there and he goes, "Zeus, your son has returned."
I think they should have just gone with Jake Gyllenhaal. I mean, that worked for Prince of Persia, right?
I like Prince of Persia.
That was a terrible movie.
I think Prince of Persia was I will tell you, believe it or not, Gene, a huge inspiration for God of War when we were in hardcore launch mode or design mode. You'd be surprised probably to hear that it was Scorpion King, because Scorpion King reminds me a lot of Prince of Persia, which is it's a fun, forgettable B movie that you kind of go see on a Sunday afternoon, and you're glad you did it, but you don't really think much about it afterwards. Yeah. And there was definitely sort of this matinee high adventure flavor that was part of the DNA of God of War, and that was sort of when I was designing it. I was listening to the soundtrack a lot. And I remember when we gave Phil Harrison sort of a very rudimentary pitch that had very rough art. I was playing as background music. I was playing the Scorpion King soundtrack and stuff. So, it's Scorpion King and Prince of Persia, I think, are very similar in that they're very forgettable and they're kind of dumb. Yeah. But for what they are, they're
fun. They're fun.
Oh, yeah, they're
fun popcorn movies.
But I would love, my hope is, God of War has kind of gone off on its own path now, and so whatever they do with that in other mediums, I think, is really sort of their own thing at this point. I don't really have an opinion. I think with Twisted Metal, I still would love to do something with that. I don't want to do another straight-up car combat game, but I'd love to sort of continue that universe. I really would love to do a digital graphic novel with the Twisted Metal universe, or a low-budget kind of slasher movie with Sweet Tooth, or it just seems there's something that we could do with that world that I still think is interesting. That's not straight-up car combat.
You know, if you're gonna do a movie, I think you should do like a romantic comedy.
Sweet Tooth.
Put Sweet Tooth and Warthog in a series of like really comedic, kind of like, oh, I can't believe this happened, and now like Roadhog's in love and Sweet Tooth is jealous because Roadhog isn't spending any more time with the drinking, going out to the bars, and it's kind of like a buddy comedy, like that could work.
This Valentine's Day.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This Valentine's Day comedy really revs its engine, or something stupid like that, But I also think I think you're sitting on a great JRPG in Twisted Metal as well, and I think that would be amazing. Yeah,
I think the universe is fun and interesting enough that there are certain genres, and JRPG I don't disagree with. I don't think like a fantasy one. I think maybe more like a sort of a retro throwback one, but I would love to see something like that. I would love to go and explore the world in some fashion down the road.
Yeah, I always think Death Race, something like that.
Death Race,
or like Fast and Furious, Twisted Metal.
Well, yeah, I mean that was so. They're the guys who did Ghost Rider 2. Which I didn't see, but I hear it was better than the first one, which I get isn't saying a lot.
I was going to say, that's not like the bar.
But when you say Fast and the Furious, there definitely is kind of a exploitation director vibe that movie could really take off with. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe, but I can't see it. I mean, unless there's a big resurgence for Twisted Metal down the road, which I don't think is certainly planned for, or God of War, the new one, does amazing, and then they decide to kind of rethink the direction as a movie. I don't anticipate either one of those ever becoming anything other than games and maybe doing more through comic books.
I mean, the new game certainly looks amazing. I'll give it that.
Yeah, it's cool.
It looks really, really good.
Does it feel strange not being at the head of that? It's been a question I've been actually wanting to ask.
It really doesn't at all. I feel zero ownership over that franchise. I mean, I think God of War, or I know God of War 1 and God of War 2 was a very different feeling because I was guiding the visions of those games. And on the first one, I was not just guiding it. I had written it or co-written it and was the lead designer on it and had conceived it from the ground up. Working with a couple of writers that we brought on. But when it was over, it felt like it was over. I've told the story before, but I really, it's one of those things that, things happen in your life and most of it you forget and some things sear in your brain and stay there. And I will never forget going, like, it was the start of my vacation because we'd worked like crazy and I was going to take 3 months off, and my wife at the time and I had booked some massages. We were going to go get somewhere, and for some reason I just was walking through the parking lot of the spa, and I had this image in my head of Kratos on this kind of crazy beast out in the desert, and as a real living creature, and he had come. This sounds so dorky, and what it is.
No,
it's what I saw in my head, and I'm not an idiot. I know it wasn't real, but it was the way my brain processed it, which was, he had come to me to let me know he was kind of going to go off and have a lot more adventures, and we kind of had our goodbye there in my imagination, and it was meaningful to me. It was like, okay, it's sort of the dramatic version of checking the box and saying, okay, I did that, and he's in good hands, and he's going to go off and raid temples and kill gods and just have a great fucking time, and it was a great send-off. And since then, I really haven't felt any desire to go back to that world, and when I see other people working in it, I kind of go, I wish them well, and I know a lot of the people making the new God of Wars, but it does not feel weird at all. It feels kind of like a good, healthy way to end that relationship.
Well, you know, Dave, what the really interesting this is actually really cool. The awesome thing about the first God of War is that it's one of those gaming experiences for me that I played through it once and it was amazing, and I never went back to it. And I'll tell you why. Because the first time I played it, I was in Iraq, and I was stationed. We were in Fallujah, and we were in this little stone alabaster house. It was 4 of us, and we were just kind of hunkered down, and we had this old television. And of course, like it was covered with dust because there was no windows, so every time there was a dust storm, it was just dust coming in. So we had to wipe it down every time we wanted to use it, and we ordered this PS2. And it took like a month to get there, but we finally got it, and we ordered God of War with it, and that was back in the day of EGM was still a thing, like printed EGM was still a thing, and I'd read the reviews for God of War, and I was like, man, I can't wait to play this, and so we got it, and I played it, and I remember I was so into it, there was a mortar attack the 3rd day, and the mortars were hitting the building and I just sat, I threw my flak vest on and put my Kevlar helmet on, and I just sat there. I kept playing because I was like, I don't want to walk away from this. This is too fast. And this is awesome.
That's a little aggressive, man.
I don't even care. Well, but the thing is that I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it was I was in a bad place, and it was an aggressive time, and it was an outlet that I needed. And so that's actually like one of my most vivid gaming memories, like playing God of War in the middle of an actual war. like playing it in the middle of a no shit war, and to sit here on this podcast, like that was back in what, 2005?
Yeah.
To sit here, it was like in the summer of 2005. To sit here like 11 years later and actually talk with the guy who made that game is just absolutely fucking mind blowing to me.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, it does. It does. It goes both ways, and I'll tell you that's a very moving story to me because, I was just at Comic-Con, and I had my girls there, and to see who they fan out over and who it's how do I put this? So to watch them grow up and get really into certain kinds of entertainment, when you actually are making it, it becomes very easy to forget that it's anything other than this job that you love and this passion that you have to get this thing out of you. And the fact that it affects people is something that it's so hard to have that awareness. And so when you get reminded, you have a lot of people come up to you and say, "Oh, I love this, I love that, I love that." And obviously, it's not like whatever. No, it's a genuine honor that they say that to you. But it's very hard to take that in because you're not doing it for accolades. You're doing it because you're chasing after this vision in front of you. And so when someone tells a story that's as sort of concretized and special as the one you just told, the fact that me and the team, because it certainly wasn't all me by any means. The team and I were able to make something that, and I'll say to your face, as much as I disagreed with why we were in Iraq, I never, ever disagreed with the fact that people had gone over there to do their jobs, even though I'm sure a lot of the soldiers over there did not agree with the reason we were in Iraq. The fact that we could bring even a hint of engagement or joy or happiness or entertainment to people who were risking their lives for the Constitution and for our country, that's a pretty big deal. So I appreciate you sharing it, and it kind of sits on the shelf with when I heard Robin Williams had played God of War, because it's kind of the same thing. It's like what you gave us, we're able to at least return the favor in a little bit.
Yeah.
When we heard Robin Williams had played the game and loved it, and this is after he died, because one of the teammates on the team had told me the story of she had run into him, and obviously when he was alive, that would be weird if it was after he died. But she had run into him, and he found out she had worked on God of War, and he just was very expressive about how much he enjoyed it, and to go, wow, this guy's been entertaining me for 2 decades, and we gave something back. You know, so it's very similar when I hear your story. That it means a lot. So I appreciate you sharing it, and thank you.
Yeah, man. It's like I said, it's just blowing my mind that I'm actually talking to you. Like that's just blowing my mind.
I wish my kids felt that way when I talk to them.
Dad talking about his crazy video games again.
That's right.
Like I would brag about that. Like the motherfucker, my dad made God of War. Like,
I'm sure they do. And when I go into GameStop, I rarely go into GameStop anymore because I just. But my oldest will always be like, "Oh, Dad, is this your game?" Because she's so, and I'm just like, "Just put it back."
Yeah.
Just hold it up. Hey, is this your game, Dad?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's awesome.
Career day would take on a whole.
Cliffhanger? Yeah, exactly.
Career day would take on a whole new meaning for me. I'd be arrogant as fuck.
You realize I am searching through the book to see if you're in here.
Oh, good. That's back in the day that there were not only manuals but credits in the manuals.
There were manuals. There were big, thick-ass manuals.
Okay, so do you see the credits on that? Are there credits in that book?
There are. Let's see. Go ahead. Keep talking. I'll find them.
It should be the very back. Like Marianne Lewis was the producer.
Nope,
Do you see?
Just the limited warranty.
You better cash in on that now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Dude, this game sucked. I want my money back.
David, speaking of God of War, how much did the movie Clash of the Titans influence you for that game?
The original was a huge influence. If you look at that and a lot of the Harryhausen stuff, and
the Harryhausen stuff. I totally get it.
And then the influence is all over it, and the influence of Raiders of the Lost Ark is all over God of War 2. I mean, the Pandora's box is the Ark of the Covenant. There's a sequence in God of War where he wedges himself up against this pillar and kicks it to knock it over. That's straight out of the Well of the Souls. And Raiders of the Lost Ark, even down to wanting the animation to reflect and to sort of, be an homage to that sequence. So when I was 10, which I think was just the perfect age, I saw Clash of the Titans and I saw Indy 1 or Raiders, or as George Lucas would like us to call it, Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, but I will never call it that.
No, it's Raiders.
No thanks. And both of those things, again, just catching them at that right age really steered me and put me on a path to knowing. I think it was those two things, and then I saw a special on CBS about how they did the special effects of Empire Strikes Back. And I kind of saw all those things at the same time, that same summer of '81, and it was just like a light bulb of like, oh my God, I want to go do creative stuff. I want to help make stuff, you know. So Clash was a huge influence. And then even to the point that, I mean, you know, where Corey got Harry Hamlin to come back and reprise the role of Perseus in God of War 2, which I thought was brilliant.
That was cool.
That was cool, huh?
Yeah.
What,
wow.
You know, like, in regards to, like, you know, the very first God of War game, like, did you guys have a set plan as to where you wanted the story to go? Because I remember being surprised in God of War 2 when I found out that Zeus was going to be the main antagonist. Because like he's normally like, you know, he's the father, he's the father of the gods. He's the head of the pantheon, and in most Greek mythology based stories and movies, like he's usually like he's a good guy. He's a protagonist, you know. Like so to kind of turn it on its head and make him the villain I thought that was fascinating, and I was wondering, like, was that the plan from the start?
No, so, I mean, we were writing the story as we were making the game, just as oftentimes happens, and it just took a long time to build the universe and build the characters, and you know, we went through 2 or 3 writers that we brought in that worked with me until we locked onto Marianne, who worked with us to bring it home, and so what we knew going in was that it was set in the Greek myths, and we actually started with the Pandora's Temple first. And so we knew that was going to be somewhere in the center of the adventure, but we didn't really know what came before, and we didn't really know what came after. And so we were building out that whole middle part while we were trying to write the beginning and end part. So by the end of it, Corey and I had talked about how we wanted to end the whole thing, which I've gone on record in a number of videos you can find on YouTube and stuff, talking about how the end of it is, you know, the birth of Jesus, and you're controlling the wise men, following the North Star, and all that. So we kind of knew where we were going at the end of God of War 1. And it wasn't until we just started some extensive story meetings on God of War 2 that I think Zeus sort of really stepped into that role. I didn't even know Zeus was going to be Kratos' father until probably 3/4 of the way through.
Wow.
God of War 1. So we were making it up as we went, and one of the reasons that game was so hard was, every time we would change the story, we would have to go back and change parts of the game, which, as you would imagine, made the team really happy. They loved that.
So, like, I guess looking back on the God of War series, like specifically God of War 2 and and the original God of War, like, is there anything that you wish you could have done and you didn't do? Like looking back, like, man, I really would have loved to have had, like, the fucking Nemean lion or something like that, like.
Not really. I mean, it was a labor of love, and it was a very hard game to work on, and we got just an amazing amount of support from Sony, and so. It's a cliche statement to say, oh, we left it all on the field, but we left it all on the field. I think the only regret is that we focus tested the shit out of that game, which was wonderful. But by the time we got towards the end, we thought we had understood all the little problems, and we had had enough experience going, okay, well, let's not do what we did 4 levels ago because the focus groups didn't understand the puzzle and all that. And so we just ran out of time and didn't really push to focus test the last level, which was Hades. And Hades ends up having that fucking spike tower.
Yeah, man. The spike tower of death.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I would say other than that, no. I think I wouldn't call what I'm about to say a regret because I had moved on. I think the one thing that I don't like, though, is that and I enjoyed God of War 3. I thought it was a great game, one of the best games of that year and stuff in terms of the game. When it comes to the character and what happened to him towards the end of 2 and then a lot of 3 and a lot of 4 was really, I wasn't working on the game at the time. And I hate now that what I call my Kratos, which is sort of 1 and most of 2, gets kind of lumped in as this one-note character who's always angry to the point that everyone's like, oh, yay, they're adding dimensionality to Kratos in the new one because he was just so awful. And it's like, I'm not suggesting he was or wasn't in those later games, but he's a very different character in God of War 1 than he is in God of War 3, I can tell you that.
Oh, and absolutely.
It's unfortunate that that might get lost to a lot of people now, but what?
It felt like a different game.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
it really did.
I was thinking that beating he handed out to Poseidon set the tone. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, dude, he was angry.
Yeah, that's how I raised my kid. You didn't clean your room, you're gonna get a Poseidon beat down.
You hit him with the blades of chaos.
Yeah.
First person beat well, I pulled them out of the eye sockets, and that's how it goes.
I mean, you'll learn. You know, Dave, you mentioned that it was a labor of love. You could say that it was one of the 12 labors.
Oh.
You could, but there'd be no value because there'd be no entertainment value. You know what? I'm just fucking with you. You could say.
I was gonna say that's about the level of sophistication of humor that you're gonna get on this show.
Well, that's just my level. So I was just fucking with you.
It takes more than that to get to me. Trust me.
Good.
I have to deal with Mike Mullis on a weekly basis.
About his hat.
There's the mic, Jeff.
The old guy?
Yeah.
Yes, the old guy.
The old guy. There you go.
It fits right in. There it is. The old guy. So these guys are God of War guys. I'm actually more Twisted Metal than I am God of War. I kind of I enjoyed a lot of what Twisted Metal did. How did you transition from that to God of War? Was it just one? It's interesting to see how people, when we had Christian on Sunday, his lineage went, tactical shooter to tactical shooter, and it kind of just burns away. You went from vehicular combat to God of War. How did that come about?
Well, I went from Mickey Mouse to vehicular combat.
Very true.
A lot of it is really, I think, speaks to the credit of Sony, honestly, in the sense that they have always been a really great company when it comes to allowing their teams to sort of follow, whatever, as long as it makes, financial sense. But whatever is speaking to them and that they're passionate about. And, sometimes that gets them in trouble. Sometimes you look at the portfolio and go, that's weird that they would have greenlit that and paid that much to make that because there's not as much of an audience, But I think that that's worth it because of all the gems that they're able to make with that philosophy, where you've got development teams that are just so passionate and so driven and so inspired to make a specific thing that, that would be why I went from, Mickey to Twisted to God of War to Drawn to Death. It's just that's the kind of company and that's kind of company leadership that they have there. And I imagine, if I probably worked at another company or worked with and or for, depending on where you're talking about my career, there would be the pressure to say, oh, well, this guy knows this, just put him on that. But to be frank, I probably wouldn't be in the industry anymore at that point. Or I would go super indie and make text adventures or something because I'm not... There are the people who could work till the day they die and do brilliant work as craftsmen of games. I'm not one of those people. If you sit me in front of Maya or Photoshop, I know my way around enough to sort of make things move, but there are people a gajillion times more brilliant than I am when it comes to the crafting of video games. For me, I've just been fortunate so far in being able to find partners that want to work with me to sort of chase after sort of these visions that I have that ultimately become the team visions. And so, I think there are similarities between God of War and Twisted Metal in terms of tonally, and, in a lot of ways, I can't seem to escape making games at a story level about family. I think if you look at Twisted Metal Black and the last Twisted Metal, it's all about family, and I think God of War is all about family. And if you dig into and I don't know why, it's like I had some weird tragic family, but it's there. It's absolutely there, and it's very overt. So I don't know. I have no idea. I can tell you that the last 10 years since God of War, I've been much more interested in mechanics-based games, and now that we're kind of beginning to wrap up work, at least on the initial launch of Drawn to Death, I would love to get back into some narrative stuff after this game ships. So I'll be curious to see, how different the next game is. But I think I already know what it's going to be if I can get somebody crazy enough to give us money to make it. So it's still in that tone.
David, do you think that next project would be like a AAA game?
I don't think so. I think it would be a what I would like to do, and this is all sort of nascent. I'm sort of formulating all this, but so I would like to find a business model where the budgets can be $2 to $5 million, and the games, at least this next batch of games, I hope we're fortunate enough to get to make. And I could be talking to you next year going, I can't find any fucking money, So it's not. It's not a guarantee by any means, so I'm certainly aware of that. But if we can make this next batch of games and each one is in that range, I would much rather, use interactivity to sort of set up some really cool new IPs and some new stories in those worlds and some cool play mechanics. And AAA really doesn't hold much appeal for me, and I'll tell you why. I absolutely get why people love AAA. But on the developer side, I can tell you that once you've had the experience of standing on a stage at GDC or E3 or wherever and basically showing them the game and having the audience just ooh and ah and go apeshit for, in essence, the effects and the visuals and the graphics, and then 8 months later realize that what was jaw-dropping at E3 is now basically bargain bin, or the bar is that's the lowest you can do, and the bar is raised again, and you realize that you're not really contributing to. I mean, you may be contributing, but so much of I want us to succeed based on our mastery of the medium. I don't want us to succeed because we've spent the most money and had the biggest team to make photorealistic real-time graphics. There's a lot of companies that do that great, But once you've gone through a couple of those and you realize that the quality that they love on one day doesn't travel and doesn't survive time. Like if you show somebody Uncharted 4, whether the game's great or not, I think it's great. But when you show somebody Uncharted 4, the first thing they respond to today is how amazing it looks. If you jump ahead 5 years and show them that, the gameplay better be there and the narrative better be there because the graphics will be unacceptable. But if you show somebody today Galaga, even though it's very antiquated, Galaga still holds up. Galaga can still engage you for 20, 30 minutes at a time. And so I want to be able to sort of look back on our body of work and say, not that there's not room for those brilliant, wonderful, beautiful-looking AAA games, but I want us to be able to look back on our body of work and say, we did our best to make it hold up so that, my kids' kids can play Drawn to Death, and it'll be like in Back to the Future when the guy's like, this is like a baby's toy.
I will tell you straight up, I still will play Mickey Mania. I still will play it, and I'll tell you the version, and that's the one I meant to grab out of the bin. I have the Sega CD version of that one too.
Yeah.
The Steamboat Willie at the very beginning with the music and the score the way it was.
Yeah.
I will forever play that, and I'll have my kids play it because they need to know where where games today came from, and that was to me at that point in time, when all the other Sega CD games were coming out and Super Nintendo games and stuff like that. That to me was a masterpiece, and I'm not saying that because you're sitting here in front of us. That really to me was a masterpiece game.
Well, I appreciate that. I will tell you, I don't think it's a very good game. And if I were to go back, I'll be specific why. If you go back to that Steamboat Willie level, there's a lot of really cool stuff happening in that level. You cannot, for the life of you, tell what is going to hurt you in that level because we didn't think to go, hey, you know what? The black and white's really cool. But we need to make it very clear what is background and what is foreground and what is going to hurt you and what is just art for the sake of ambiance. And that game suffers all throughout from just needing a very serious tuning pass to sort of fix that stuff. And the other thing that drove me nuts about that game is it was at a time where, it was me and Mike Yam that were doing design in America and the Traveler's Tale guys that were doing design in the UK. And the UK sensibility was so different that they really liked at the time these little fucking small, chunky little levels of like 4 screens deep, and then you had a load bar, and you went to the next. And I was like, I was coming from Super Mario and coming from Sonic and these really big, 40-screen deep 2D side-scrolling levels that you could get lost in and explore. And that's another part of Mickey Mania that I hate is I hate the cadence of that game.
Wow, I said, and I don't, and honestly, again, I'm not saying this because you're here. I totally don't see that, and in fact, it took me one time on the goat, because you know what I'm talking about, to go. Okay, well, all right, I got to stop the goat from shooting out the musical notes. So I jumped on the thing, the goat shut up, and I moved on. I mean, I didn't get caught like that. I never felt like the game was trying to trick me. I kind of figured.
Yeah, it wasn't. We just didn't know what we were doing.
And some of it too is music. Back then, I don't know if you would agree with me or not, but back then, because graphics weren't what they are today, I always felt like music was what drove those games. So Sega CD and those kind of systems appealed to me because, we had the music in Mickey Mania was phenomenal. I have it ripped to my PC and I listen to it once in a while. I mean, I'm being dead serious here.
I believe you, and I will give you the production value. I thought was phenomenal. The same Disney animators that did the sprites in Aladdin did all of our sprites in Mickey Mania. The production was second to none at the time, and there's a lot in that game I'm incredibly proud of. So no, I appreciate you saying that. It's just for me, it's funny. Like I can go back to literally Twisted Metal 1 and still have moments of like, okay, that was kind of fun chasing the cars around the warehouse district. I can't really do that so much with Mickey Mania, but I'm glad that you can still enjoy it.
I thoroughly do, and once I my kids, I get that I'll get them on it too. I mean, it's just that to me was the pinnacle of what of what the games at that time could be.
I could see that. I could see that. And it's funny you mentioned the soundtrack. The one that I need to find because I loved it so much was the Sega CD from the Knight's Christmas Sega CD. And
I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal.
Yeah.
I send you a Mickey Mania, my Mickey Mania book.
Yeah.
You sign it and send it back. I will send you in that same thing. I don't think it was Sega. It was Sega Saturn. I'll send you the Christmas disc.
I would love that. I would appreciate it. Arrange it with you, and we will get on it this week. That'd be great. Thank you.
I will pull it out of the drawer as soon as we're done.
Nice.
That's pretty awesome right there.
Nice. So, David, real quick, I want to transition over to Drawn to Death because that game, honestly.
I thought we were going to talk politics. What the fuck?
Hold on. Let me go get a beer or something.
Yeah,
stronger.
we could certainly talk politics.
Let's talk whatever you guys want to talk about.
Yeah, let's jump to Drawn to Death, and then we can get to politics. But Drawn to Death, Drawn to Death really, really caught my eye, and I've said this many times on the podcast. I really feel like smaller developers, indie developers, are really pushing a creative envelope that maybe is lacking with AAA games.
Yeah.
And I saw this game, and I'm like, holy shit! Like this fucking game looks like awesome. And when I read the premise of the game, that it takes place in someone's notebook, a high school student's notebook he's drawing. It's funny. I could actually identify with that because I was an artist and my drawings weren't nearly as good as the ones in Drawn to Death, but that was me. Sitting in high school in detention class, in detention. Drawing, and we used to draw. I was really into Marvel comics at the time, DC Comics. And I would draw like Silver Surfer. The Punisher was like probably my favorite character at the time, or one of my favorite characters. Right. That and Wolverine. Wolverine's better than Spider-Man, by the way, John. I just want to throw that out there. David says no.
We've been over this, man.
Yeah, you're on your own on that one, man.
I'm the only one that's vouching for Wolverine here.
No, I love Wolverine, but I don't think he's as good as Spider-Man.
No, only Enrique's going down that road.
Yeah, exactly.
Although that GIF you posted the other day of Wolverine punching him, that was funny.
That was funny. That was for John. So yeah, when I saw this game, I was like, oh my!
Batman is a loser. I hate Batman. I think I'm in the minority on a lot of superhero things. But anyway, sorry.
Enrique, you'll notice I shut up for a minute. Just because I didn't want to say something that was blasphemous or otherwise.
Go ahead, say it,
might
John.
have gotten me actually. No, it's fine. I don't need.
Well, you're the London gentleman.
No, he values your friendship too much.
Won't be a gentleman enough after this.
It's all right. I'll never mind.
All right. So so this game it really kind of like it took me back to a place in my life where I used to do this, and it wasn't just me. It was a lot of my friends. I had friends that were more artistically inclined than I was, and these guys used to draw their asses off and would have like binders. Oh my gosh, I sound like Mitt Romney. Binders of like drawings. I mean, they would. I mean, and we would look at these drawings, and a lot of them were like kind of violent.
Like 49% of your friends, or what? Like,
I got both references. This is my kind of podcast.
Yes, some of them were takers. So it really hit home to me a little bit. I was like, oh shit, like I used to do this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What was the inspiration? Like, how did you guys arrive to this? I guess this artistic vision for this game, because it's really unique. I mean, I've never seen anything like this before.
Well, I mean, it started as a stick figure game. I had come up with just this. I can't draw either, and my stick figures tend to be relatively expressive, and I remember drawing this shot of this stick figure with a dodgeball that was just about to throw it and just decapitate somebody with it. And I remember just writing I think it was called super big-headed, hyper-violent stick figure dodgeball, or something is what it was called. And for a while we were just going to do a dodgeball game with stick figures, and it evolved into wanting to do a shooter with stick figures, and then it basically, as we started to kind of flesh it out, it made more sense that if it was going to be violent, who was the hand, who was drawing this, and it made sense that it was probably going to be a teenage kid. And then it was like, well, a teenage kid isn't drawing stick figures. A teenage kid who's not like an art prodigy is probably drawing like you were describing. Most of us were in high school, just trying to draw stuff we saw in our heads, and we weren't very good at it. And so, as much as I know I love and the art team loves and the whole team loves hearing that people, at least some people, not everybody does, but a lot of people love the art style of Drawn to Death, it's meant to be kind of amateurish. It's meant to be, we have really amazingly talented artists working on the game, and it's they started off drawing with their non-dominant hand, and it took them a long time to really get an art style down that didn't look like this art student was like a prodigy or something, And so we really did want to capture, whether it's the art style, whether it's looking up in the skybox and seeing little notes that the girl that he likes is writing to him, and she sits in front of him, so if you look up in the skybox, they're having a little conversation, and her notes are all written upside down in the sky because she's sitting opposite where he is and stuff. And the whole game is actually very much about where you're able to decipher really who this kid in class is, whether it's looking at his cell phone exchanges and text, whether it's looking at notes he's scribbled all over the world. Even the characters themselves, a lot of them have counterparts to people in his own life, not in the sense that it's like, oh, this guy represents this kid in school. We didn't want to get into that because we were very hoping that nobody would look at this and see anything about school violence, because that wasn't the idea. But the idea that, Alan is basically a stand-in for this kid's stepdad who he fucking hates, right? And so you can see that story unfold as you explore more of the world and the backgrounds and things like that. And so it just kind of like all these things, like I said, God of War, we were designing it while we were writing the story. It just kind of evolves as we're making it. But it's always been very much about keeping that tone that a lot of us are familiar with going through high school and junior high and drawing and having just unbridled imagination and expressing that, in the margins of your notebook and telling a story and creating a game for that world. So I love it, though. I love the universe, and I hope it's successful, and I hope it's successful enough that we get to do a single-player experience in there so we can kind of flesh out more of the universe. But, we'll see how it goes. But I'm a fan. I'm happy to hear that you like the art style, too.
No, absolutely. And, it kind of reminds me of maybe Quake a little bit. That arena-based shooter with quick movements, the double jumps. Yep. But it's a free-to-play model, and I know that for some gamers, they get a little concerned with that model. Cool. They get concerned with microtransactions, especially with shooters, because the concern is always, if I don't buy this weapon, or am I gonna be at a disadvantage per se? How are you guys kind of addressing that, kind of balancing the weapons and the microtransactions?
One of the reasons. Sorry, what?
I said no. I just said I was just commenting. That's a good question.
Yeah, no. So there were a number of reasons, but not the least of which that we went with Sony was that their vision for free to play on this game was ours, which is, goodness gracious, man. I would hope for people who know my work and my passion for games that there's enough credit in the bank that, God damn, I have zero interest in pay to win. I have zero interest in not only pay to win, but I have zero interest in getting power through leveling up. I don't even think Call of Duty is a pure shooter, because it's absurd to me that you can come into Call of Duty and play for longer than I have and thus unlock better things than I have. And granted, we all paid $60 or $40 or whatever for the game, but that's not, you're basically, instead of paying to win, you're paying time to win. And you should be able to beat me on the battlefield because you're just better, or you have more experience. It shouldn't be that you have better weapons. And so even if we were making a retail game, the answer would be the same, which is every weapon is designed to have pros and cons, and every weapon is designed to basically, every weapon is not balanced in the same range. So we have a weapon called Uncle Joe, which is a one-hit kill weapon. And certainly at a damage per second level, that's more powerful than the sort of our riff on the AK-47. But the fact that to reload Uncle Joe, you literally have to pull a coffin out of the ground, and to fire him, because Uncle Joe's a big fat guy who's based on the neighbor that the artist in high school used to live next to until he died of a heart attack. And so to fire that guy, the coffin is like, right? So the guy on the receiving end has plenty of time. There's a threat indicator that appears on the screen if Uncle Joe's coming at you. So for us, it's about making sure that every weapon has a balance of pros and cons, and every character has the same. And we're hoping to make money off of cool new characters. We're selling levels in a way that other games have not, where we don't split the user base. I basically was in love with Mario Kart 8, and I loved how they did their level voting at the end, which wasn't really voting like the majority won. It was, if you haven't played it, it was more everybody picked the level that they wanted to race on next, and then the wheel just went around. And if more people wanted to race in the fairground, there was a higher percentage chance, because more people had picked that level, and that's where the wheel would stop. But this allows us, using that kind of system, to say, hey, we're going to sell levels, and it doesn't split the user base, because if I have a level like Flood, which is our flooded skyscraper level, and you don't have it, you can still vote on a level that I've put up to vote, and it doesn't really matter. It's basically, it's not like, oh, suddenly the only people who can play this level are people who have bought it. We didn't want to do that and stuff. So, but
that was a frustration of mine with Destiny for a little bit.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, and so we definitely want to make sure that we've been in a version of sort of private access for a while. And we've been tuning, and we're still tuning, and we'll tune well after the game comes out to make sure that when we get it wrong, we'll change it, because we're not looking to make money off of selling power. I think it's a bastardization of game design, and I've heard a lot, and I get it. If anybody listening to this doesn't believe me, I don't blame them. I've heard so many people go and give lip service to this, and then it comes out and it's not really true. And so the good news is it's free. So try it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And it's also heavily skill based. So we had a guy on our forums the other day complaining, "Oh, it's pay to win. It's pay to win." It's like, dude, you're coming in and you're playing. He was going into ranked games where he had never really played a lot before, and he's getting his ass kicked. And it's like, you're getting your ass kicked because you're going into ranked games against veterans who are trying to earn these trophies.
He's a noob.
Before we shut off the private access, and those trophies are gone forever, because we have a whole new series of trophies coming. And so I appreciate, though, his skepticism, where he would say, oh, it's pay to win because these guys have better weapons. It's like, dude, those guys did not have better weapons. They could have destroyed you with any fucking weapon. They could have destroyed you with a rock, because they're just great players, and you were probably in the wrong place at the wrong time, which sucks. It sucks, but we do want it to be highly competitive and highly skill-based. So.
Yeah, that's so refreshing for me to hear, because that takes me to a time back years ago with first-person shooters, where it was very much based on skill and not like, buying a weapon or having this weapon that destroys everyone in its path. I think of Unreal on the PC. I think of Halo when that came out. It really was very much skill-based. Like if you didn't have skills, you were going to get owned, and that was it. Yeah. And that I miss that competitive nature in first-person shooters. I feel like now it's just too.
It's all focused on the meta these days. It's also what we really wanted to do was say there's so much growth and advancement in the meta of these games in terms of leveling up and perks and this and that and the other. And we said, what if we concentrated on the actual moment-to-moment exchange on the battlefield? And that's why, again, no one owes me the benefit of the doubt. No matter how many hits or misses I've worked on, people are consumers. They have right to be skeptical.
Sure.
But, a lot of people will come at the game and say, oh, it's only 4 fucking players. What the fuck is that? And I get it, but the reason we're at 4 players is not because we didn't want to support 24, we're idiots, and we think, oh, gamers love 4 players, It was that we want it to be skill-based, and we found that, all of our characters are different. All of our weapons that are really high damage give you threat indicators that we need you to be able to pay attention to. So if you get shot, you feel like it's your own fault. It's not like cheap. And so 4 seems like the sweet spot where there's enough players on our map size that you're always engaging if you want to be, but you have the mental bandwidth to learn the tactics of your enemies, and you have the ability, all characters have a pro and a con with a different character, and you have the ability to know when a certain weapon is coming in that you can actually absorb the damage of that weapon and send it back out at your enemy. You try to do that with 16 players or 32 players,
that'd be nuts.
It's just fucking chaos, and you take 5 steps and you're dead. And so for us, you mentioned Quake, for us it really is, it's a hybrid brawler shooter. It's trying to be sort of the bastard child of Quake and Smash Brothers is basically what we're going for. And, it's impossible to do pay to win in that world, because when you have those, when we go out of our way to make the reason you died clear because we want you to feel it's your fault that you fucked up, the minute we cheat and sell a weapon that's more powerful, you're going to know instantly. So we can't really hide behind the chaos of 32 players on the map and use that as our excuse of why you died. It's skill.
Right. Yeah. And unfortunately, if that ever gets out on social media, then, you're right. That everybody will know very quickly.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's true. But right now, it's like, you've got, the game, it has been really interesting. Just the best part is we found a passionate group of fans who were really into it. The worst part is people will just dismiss it out of hand and never actually play it and go, what the fuck is this? 4 players, fuck this shit, and they won't give it a shot. I mean, that's how it is, and so hopefully the word of mouth will be strong enough that we can get some of those players back who just dismissed it outright. But if not, it was probably never meant for them. Like, for example, we rejected kill streaks right away because kill streaks, as much as I know players like being on the offensive end of them, it's kind of like being on a basketball game and. The guy who keeps scoring 3-pointers is suddenly now he gets to score a 5-pointer. And
that was Mike in the 30s.
It's absolutely ridiculous. It is not good gameplay. You're basically saying you're winning. Let's make it so you can win even more. It's every kid gets a trophy, and that's not the design philosophy that we're going after with Drawn to Death.
Yeah.
So what was
I
the
think it's
thought
kind of dumb.
process?
I'm sorry, go ahead, B-Money.
No, I was going to say, what was the thought process as far as deciding to go with the free-to-play model?
A lot of it, I think, has been that I love. I don't like free-to-play, but I love the promise of free-to-play. And what I really mean by that is I love the promise of service-based games. When I was doing the initial design, I was spending unhealthy amounts of time at Disneyland with my kids because I just love that place. And they were of the age where they didn't mind if every weekend I said, fuck it, we're going to Disneyland. Now they're like, again? But, at the time, I could just totally take it. And I loved how that theme park transformed throughout the year and adjusted in real time, or seemingly real time, to the customer. And I love the idea that, that a game as a service could do something similar. And so everything from, like, just this past weekend, one of our characters, Johnny Savage, had sort of a superhero costume in homage to Comic-Con. And then over the 4th of July, we gave away the Patriot Act missile launcher and had a big 4th of July deal going on. And, just minor shit. Like, whoever was ahead, instead of wearing a crown, they were wearing, like, an Uncle Sam hat. I just like the idea of taking that I loved about going to theme parks, and every time you walked in, it was still what you loved, but it had transformed based on the holidays or based on the culture or based on what was happening. And I love that idea of sort of bringing that to a game, and I love the idea, I've been blogging and tweeting forever, and the idea of being able to build a community of gamers that felt sort of like a family who was really into this game with us. There was something about the living, breathing organism of it that drew me to it. And at the time, free-to-play was really the only business model that supported that kind of service-based game situation. And then when I found Sony, who was more than willing to say, let's do free-to-play for core gamers, which means it's not play-to-win, it just seemed like a really good match at the time.
Dave, did you say Johnny Savage?
Johnny Savage is the punk rock character. And his costume makes him Johnny Voltage, which is sort of like a superhero version of Johnny Savage.
Okay, I just want to point out, I trademarked my safe word years ago, and I don't remember.
Oh my God!
I mean, I'm just saying, the patent's there, so
All I can tell you is there was this one night I was really drunk in college and really curious, and this guy screamed out Johnny Savage, and maybe it stuck. I don't know.
You say that, and he ducks.
I'll allow it. It's fine.
Yeah, I think we're probably talking about very different things now.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But no, I honestly, I heard Johnny Savage seemed to make sense for a punk rocker. But then I was like, I've heard that name. Where the fuck have I heard that name? And there's a character in Waiting for Guffman, which is a hilarious Christopher Guest movie, and whose name I think is Johnny Savage, somebody pointed out. But there's got to be something in the legality of character names that I haven't really bothered to learn in my travels, because Sony has always been a very careful company about allowing us. Like, we didn't even want to go out of our way on the packaging for Johnny Voltage to say Comic-Con exclusive, because we didn't have a deal with Comic-Con. And even though there was like a 0.1% chance Comic-Con would ever, get litigious because we had associated our game with their brand, it made sense because of learning how Sony legal works to just say, we'll just call it a convention exclusive. And then that way we're not sort of hitching, But the name of the characters, like, I'm amazed that we got Johnny Savage through. So I think once you're actually in with the IP, in games at least, characters can be named. I could probably name somebody Luke Skywalker and probably get away with it. I don't know if that's true, but it seems true.
Enrique, real quick, I got a jet, man, because it's getting close to 10:30, and I got to be early on Wednesdays. So real quick, I wanted to say, Dave, it was a real honor being on and getting to talk to you, man. Like I said, God of War in Iraq is one of my pivotal gaming memories, and I can count those on two hands. So I've been gaming for a long time. So thanks for the memories, man. And seriously, dude, I'm very, very much looking forward to Drawn to Death, and please keep on doing what you're doing.
Thank you, and seriously, thank you for sharing the story. It does mean a great deal.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Boys, as always, it is always a pleasure. Enrique, this has been a great episode, man. Just good shit, man. Like everybody in chat is like there's no conversation in chat because everybody's like everyone's on right, like listening.
Yeah.
But anyway, real quick, please don't forget to join us at midnight Eastern Standard Time on Friday night for some live Uncharted 4 multiplayer with Quentin Kopp from Naughty Dog. And as always, guys, it's always a pleasure. David, thanks again. And Enrique, I'll see you later. Sorry I got a jet, man. That's just Tuesday nights, man.
We'll see you next week, man.
Hey, John, what we could do for David, if we could hook it up, is to help him get the word out on Drawn to Death between Super Deformed Games Cast, Basement Radio Arcade, and Next Level Gaming. Maybe we can get some of this Drawn to Death going in like a multi-stream.
That'd be great. House Neutral can make it happen. You got the 3 House Neutral podcasts right here.
Yeah.
So
we would love and appreciate that. If we can make that work, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm all over it.
All right, let's make that happen.
Yeah,
Cool.
let's all quarterback this sometime this week and get that figured out, because that's definitely something that we at SDGC want to be a part of. So. Awesome, guys. Again, sorry I got a jet, but
all right, John.
Enjoy the rest of the evening, fellas.
Thanks,
All right, John.
Have
See
a
you,
good
man.
night,
Good night, John.
Good night, man.
Later, guys.
Right.
So, David, I actually wanted to say, like, I'm not very good at Drawn to Death right now. I'm getting there, but I wanted to back you up on the 4-on-4 rooms, because the way the levels are really built and the way that they're designed, I like that intimacy of it. I actually get it's a little daunting when you go into a room and there's like 32 people running around and you don't know who's who. So I actually applaud that.
Cool, man. Thanks for giving it a shot and playing it. It means a lot that there are players out there that the phrase "getting it" sucks because it sounds very elitist, like, oh, you get it, and this guy doesn't get it. I think the fact that you connect with what we're trying to do and you share that interest in it, that's really what I'm trying to express. So thank you for that.
No problem, because I was in a room once with guys. There was like only 2 other guys in there. It's just the 3 of us running around this level, and it kind of reminded me of when I would play something like Halo with some buddies of mine, and we just set up a room on a stage. It'd be 3 of us running around, firing rockets at each other. So
Right.
I really like that.
And it allows, hopefully, players to form relationships with each other in terms of knowing how players fight and how they move. And we're actually just this week getting in our custom GIFs, which allow players to upload whatever GIFs they want that sort of come out of the the characters' mouths as word balloons, and so
that's pretty awesome.
Nice.
yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
hopefully you'll start to sort of recognize, all the taunts and abilities and play styles, because with 4 it's much more easy to kind of really track all that. So I love that you like that. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a great point because I was a beta tester on Xbox Live, and I remember when the multiplayer games were much smaller, much more intimate, like Eric was just describing.
Yeah.
I was definitely forming like relationships a lot quicker than I am now. Like you go into like a game like Battlefield, it's like 32 people.
Yeah.
It's like no one's talking to anyone anymore.
Yeah.
And
No,
I've noticed
no.
that with these bigger games, like it's
Yeah.
not happening.
It's easy to get. Like, I remember about 2 or 3 E3s ago where they had the Battlefield, where it was probably the first time that like the commander had the iPad, and you had like, I think it was like 64, right? It's not 32.
Yeah.
64, yeah. 64, yeah.
32 on each side, which is worse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's impossible not to be impressed and wowed by just the sheer accomplishment of building that,
Mhm.
holodeck of chaos, right? That you get to go in. But for me, I always find that after the virtual smoke clears of the battle, what's left is I disengage very quickly with those games for the exact reason you're talking about, is I just can't get into a sense of engagement with what's happening on the screen because it's just so much chaos. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and one of the reasons I'm looking forward to playing this now that I've gotten a little more into it, into these competitive multiplayer again, because I haven't been for a long time. You may be benefiting from my time playing Halo, and I'll tell you why. There's a 3-on-3 mode in Halo called Breakout.
Mhm.
And it's exactly, I'm picturing Drawn to Death being sort of like that. There isn't this chaos going along. The maps are smaller. There's more places to hide, more places to pop out and shoot and things like that. And if Drawn to Death is anywhere close to that, that's a game that I can play, not being that guy that wants to get his ass kicked all night and rage quit, because I can't hang with 32 other people. So a game like that can appeal to me.
Mhm.
I hope it does. I mean, one of the challenges we're always up against, and we have unranked, and we actually we're doing all the things you're not supposed to do in a shooter in unranked, but not ranked, in terms of we have handicapping. So if you're going up against a much better player in unranked, your bullets will do more, and their bullets will do less, and we make that very clear. We're not trying to hide it. The color of the numbers that come off the enemies are color-coded to let you know, oh, okay, this guy's a lot better than me, so I'm doing more damage than I normally would and stuff. And the minute you go into rank, all that goes out the window. But our hope, though, is to find a way to balance a very hardcore competitive skill-based game, but still make it friendly enough that even with 4 players, if you go in with the wrong group, they're very brutal. And I love that, but I want to make sure that the unranked, as people are getting up to their skill, that they have a really good experience right off the bat, and we're still tuning that. So hopefully when you play it, you'll get lucky and get a good night and a good batch of players.
Well, and I also, I'm not a grinder, so one of the other games that I got really into for a while was Overwatch, because that's a game that I can pick it up, I can play, I can go away for a week or two, come back, and I feel like I'm at the same level as everybody else, minus skill, which is what you were talking about with what you're trying to do, where I'm not a level 2 guy trying to go up against level 40 people, and I have no chance.
Yeah, you may not have. The only reason you wouldn't have a chance is if they just have greater skill than you. But
Right,
they don't have better gear than you.
And that's important to me, because
Yeah.
skill I can learn. Practice can give me the skill. But if I don't, it's why I stopped playing things like The Division. I can't go in and hang with guys that are level 30 and I'm at level 15, and
It's like Destiny.
right. And so those games don't appeal to me. A game like Drawn to Death can appeal to me because I can pick it up and play, and then I can put it down and I come back to it, and I don't feel like I've lost any ground. And that really, for me, is important.
It's important for us as well. I mean, that's I have no interest. It's tough because you're always what you enjoy is a result of a lot of things, and one of it is your age, right? And so there are definitely days where I go, maybe I'm just too old for a lot of these like brand new shooters. But I don't know if that means I'm too old from a standpoint of, oh, it's too loud, get off my lawn.
I was gonna say,
Old man
it's a good
yelling at a
thing.
cloud.
Man, thank God you said that after John left.
Well, maybe there is some of that, but I think there's a large portion of that is just that the games that I grew up and that I was a young adult loving were the kind of games where I had feelings as a player that I loved so much that we want to replicate. I want to replicate what it was like to play split screen games on, whether it's GoldenEye or Twisted Metal or Halo on the same TV, but I want to do it online. And I want that feeling back, because I really enjoyed that feeling. And so the age part of it just gives me maybe a greater group of mechanics that I can connect with. But the hard part, though, is that, you never know how many other players are out there that share that same desire. A lot of people are like, fuck off, Jaffe. We just want to blow shit up. And
some of it, too... I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, it's hard to know until you put it out there. You never know how many people you're going to connect with. But I'm glad to hear that what we're doing, at the least, there's a connection there that you seem like you might like it. That's always great.
Yeah, because the other thing too, you talk about age, and in all seriousness, I've come to the age where I only have a. These guys are.
You walk right into that one.
Yeah, you know what I've learned though? Here's what I've learned. The people who covet youth and act as if youth is something of great value. I'm not saying there's not value to being young or old, but I guess I just never understood, like, I just always, it is intellectually an interesting question to me about why people look at people who they, quantify as older and think that, like, us older folks would take issue with that. I'm like, well, yeah, what? You think I want to be 22 again? Fuck no.
Yeah.
22's hard.
It was. No money, broke. At least for me it was.
I know. I don't want to be fucking 22.
No.
Yeah, 22 is stuck in nostalgia like some games.
Well, you live in South Florida. 22, you guys get Bentleys and shit. Crystal.
No, I mean, the thing is I have a finite amount of game time.
Sure.
I have to wait until the wife and the kids are in bed before I can even get on. That's why, my game time starts at 10 p.m. That's when I can. And so I've got
depending on how well you want to do on your job the next day, it ends at 10:15 or 4 in the morning, and that's hard.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
When we come to these games that you have to spend 8 months, it's one of the reasons that while I love parts of Halo 5, I hate other parts of Halo 5 because I don't have the time to invest in getting good. But that's where I'm at in life, and so the games that I need, if I'm going to be competitive and play competitive multiplayer, the game has to suit what I can do. And that's why I think this game can.
Well, I hope it can, and I can tell you that for me, the game that I have come back to, like, it's slowly rising in my top games of all time. It's been in my top 5 for about a year, and now I'm starting to think, man, I don't know if I'll ever stop playing Hearthstone, because it just it fits my gaming life right now. It's like I can get in a handful of games. I can get better at it if I spend the time. But they do a pretty good job of putting me with players that are close enough to me that I don't feel like I'm just getting slaughtered. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that there are more and more, as more ages get into games, it's really interesting to see the games that succeed because they're appealing to people who have different demands of what a game needs to be for them in order to be successful and engaging. And so, hopefully with Beyond the Death, we can check that box for a large enough number of people.
Yeah, I need to get this game, David.
Yeah, we gotta.
Yeah,
we gotta get this done.
Yeah, I also want to point out how funny the game is.
Yeah.
I mean, tutorials alone, I was rolling.
Well, if you want, I'll send you guys right when I get off this. I can tweet you guys a code if you want it.
Yeah,
That'd
no,
be wonderful.
absolutely.
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 Is this are we NDA'd for anything? Can we stream and stuff?
Yeah, stream, talk about it, say the good and the bad.
Awesome.
We're still in development, so anything that is criticism is welcome because we can fix stuff.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Nice.
I really want to get the multi thing done and get all three of us trying to get some exposure for this.
That would be great. We would love that. We would really love that.
No, absolutely. David, you mentioned something earlier about people chiming in, making comments about the game that haven't played it. I feel like that's a phenomenon on social media a lot, where you get gamers who are like, "Oh, this fucking game sucks," and like they've never played it. And I'm like, I understand like gamers have different tastes, and like I'll take No Man's Sky for example. I saw some idiot tweet, "Oh, this fucking game, it's getting a lot of hype. It sucks." And I'm like, well, you've never played the game, and if you haven't played it, why are you making that comment? And the sad part is it's coming from people who are like adults.
Well, that's always hard for me to know who's making the comment because it can easily be. Let's put it this way: I have a 10-year-old daughter who I found out today was playing Roblox, and she was I don't know. I think she made one of her character names a character from Hamilton, and he's just obsessed with fucking Hamilton. And some kid comes up to her and says, "Oh, I fucking hate Hamilton." So she basically blasts the soundtrack, which everybody in the game can hear, and starts following the kid around in Roblox to fuck with him. And I'm just like, dude, don't do that. So it is important sometimes to remember that sometimes they are just kids getting their first taste of having any kind of power. But if you don't remember that, but you're right. When it is an adult, it's really just people are. People are mean.
But what is it about? Like, and I know for a fact some of these people are adults, and that's a part that I don't understand. Like with the console war things about, these are pieces of plastic with circuits and shit and wires and whatnot, and people get so fucking like riled up.
Well,
I don't get it.
Okay. So when it is thought of that way, I don't get it, and I think you're right. But I do think it's important to, and I would say the riled up part, I will never get. The passion part, I do get, in the same way that you guys are talking about nostalgia and stuff. There is a connection to what was perceived, probably because they were a lot younger, as a simpler, better time that they attribute to PlayStation or the time playing Xbox or the time playing Nintendo or whatever. And so I do get the passion. What I don't get, and I get the nostalgia, what I don't get or I just find just sad is the negative side of that and just how venomous and just the word mean. And it really is, I didn't used to block people on Twitter. I used to engage with them, and I still do a little bit. But more and more these days, I'm just like, I just can't subject myself to that kind of vitriol because it's just so fucking negative, right? So I don't get it either. I mean, it's easy to kind of be like, oh, they must be really sad in their real lives, ha ha ha, which really is the way of trying to take back power. But that's sad in of itself, right? The fact that, wow, that they must be so sad and they must feel so disenfranchised that that's sort of the one outlet they have for expression is to go off on somebody that disagrees with them about number of players in a video game. But it is what it is,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, but it's one thing when you're a teenager, and people argue over sports teams, people argue over cars.
Yeah.
But at some point, you have to grow out of that. So at some point, you just have to enjoy what you have. And
did you ever see? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no. Go ahead because
Well, I was going to ask you if you ever saw the movie. I think it was called Fever Pitch with Jimmy Fallon.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
That scene in the bar is
really, yeah.
where they're just like the actual sports teams are friends for the most part. It's the
Right.
fans that hate each other. And so I'm friends with people who work at Xbox. I'm friends with people who work at other companies that make competing products. And it's just, there is value in growing out of it. But, and you're right, if it's a teenager, that's a different thing. They're going through their own shit. But when you definitely get to a certain age, it's, I did have this guy, we talked about it jokingly at the beginning of the podcast, but, I tweeted some shit yesterday about politics, and this guy who apparently is the co-founder of a pretty fucking big website about games just went off on me about my opinion and saying he felt sorry for my team having to work with me and all of this stuff. And I'm like, because I had an opinion that you didn't. And to his credit, after I said that, he wrote me and he publicly apologized, and I accepted his apology and stuff. But it's just, we're so quick, to sort of send off that email or that tweet. And I've been there. When I was younger, I used to do all kinds of crazy shit. So maybe it is just an age thing. Maybe you just
Some of it too. Well, some of it too is you can do it without attaching your name to it.
Yeah.
And that's the killer part is when in our day we called it a keyboard warrior. It's
I call them thumb thugs.
We call them or keyboard courage.
Yeah, because truth be told, it's like you couldn't say this to me face to face. That's when you might want to rethink hitting send because how could you say that to someone face to face? You never would because they probably pummel your ass.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's value to anonymity, but there's also, I think, a responsibility as just to our fellow humans that comes with that anonymity. Yeah. You don't have to be a nice guy, but do you really want to be such a dick?
Exactly.
Especially on social media.
Right. Well, my son is 11 years old. He's getting into, he's very hip on electronics and things like that. I don't want him looking over my shoulder and saying, "Dad, what are you doing?"
Right.
What kind of role model are you for your kids when that's what you're doing? And it's just it makes you, I don't know, I can't be party to any of it at this point. I've got so much going on that I just don't even have time for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that, Mike. Because it's like with my daughter, how can I tell her bullying is wrong? You shouldn't say this. You shouldn't say that. And she's like, well, aren't you like come get some 1942 on Twitter where you tell people all day?
Right. That guy, that's you.
Is that you with the Hulk Hogan avatar?
Yeah.
So, David, do we have a release date for Drawn to Death?
Not yet. I mean, we internally we know, but we haven't announced it yet. But soonish. I mean, it's not going to be very long at all. It's we're finishing it up, and Sony just launched Kill Strain, which was their next free-to-play game, and so all their resources have been sort of in promoting that and stuff. So very soon, like if it's not out in the next 3 to 6 months, not even 6, that's too long. I would say in the next, what is it now? August. If it's not out in the next 4 and worst case 6 months, something has gone terribly wrong, and please send a search party.
We will.
Seriously.
So I got to ask, speaking of Sony, and what we've heard at E3 with Microsoft, what are your thoughts on these console iterations? We know the Neo's coming for PlayStation. Microsoft announced Scorpio. What are your thoughts on console iterations? Because this is a new thing, and we've talked about this a little bit on this podcast. Do you think this is a good thing or bad thing for the industry?
It's definitely different for us old folks.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. I think experimentation is a good thing. It may work, it may not work. VR may work, it may not work. I think the overall message to me that's good is that they're continually, the game industry is healthy enough that they're able to try lots of different things to figure out, what gives their customers, the best experience so they can make the most money. In terms of my personal view on things like that, I know I'm not ready to drop another $400, $500 on a video game system, even though the PS4 isn't brand new anymore. It still feels kind of like a new system to me. So I think it's one of those things that, there's an equation or an algorithm that can be better expressed by people who are into such things. But there's the things that are related are the quality of the promised experience, the cost of that experience, and the quality of that experience is very much driven by the quality of the current experience of what you have. And so I would say that unless what they show me on Scorpion or Scorpio or whatever the fuck it's called, or on the new PlayStation or whatever that is, unless what they show me is so compelling that I want to run out and get it, I imagine most players would feel the same, and it either needs to be so compelling that it's going to drive the market or it's not. So I think what's good about it is companies are continuing to try new things and push the needle, but I think I haven't seen any visuals or gameplay or experiences from these new systems yet, and so until I see something that makes me go, holy fuck, I got to get that, I think it's the same as it's always been, which is just the quality of the experience promised equate to what they're asking for it. So, it seems kind of soon to me, but if the proof's in the pudding and they show footage that makes you go, shit, I want that, then I think that's great. But have you guys seen any footage from either of these systems that indicate?
No, we're still waiting for Sony to show Neo.
And this is, I gotta tell you, and maybe it's because you and I you gotta be close to my age by now. You're probably.
I'm 45.
All right, so wow, I'm actually slightly younger, but we're okay. So we're in our 40s. So we've been through these console iterations, and we've been through the old 16-bit wars and all that stuff. Yeah. I've always felt that we are way too soon for these. I mean, we're talking about new iterative consoles, and we haven't even hit the 3-year point of the current consoles. Yeah, and that to me has always been kind of, disturbing's not the word. It's just kind of strange and new. But I've always also felt, I keep getting this strange feeling, and some have agreed with me, some have not, that these are apology consoles. Like, you were just talking about these things need to blow you away with what they can do. I feel like they're bringing these out because they didn't hit the markers that they said they were going to hit a couple years ago. So, everybody wanted this, and everybody's trying to sell that. They can't quite get there. So, okay, so here's Neo, here's Scorpio, here are these new consoles to kind of do what we kind of hoped we could do in 2013. What's your take on that?
I haven't. That's maybe if you're talking about Xbox One, because I know for Xbox fans there was a little disappointment that maybe the graphics on the whole don't tend to be as good as on the PS4, if that's what you're into. But I haven't felt that way. I mean, here's the deal. I think at a gameplay level standpoint, Steam is eating the console's lunch. I think if it wasn't for the console's obsession with high quality, realistic graphics, the PC gaming potentially would take over, because PC gaming right now is where you're seeing the stuff about games that, and I still love my console. I'm playing Song of the Deep right now on my PS4, and I'm loving every minute of it. So I still consider myself primarily a console gamer, but I do play, when I'm looking for what I love most about games, which is interesting gameplay, it tends to be happening more frequently on my PC. Wow. And so I think when it comes to visual quality that everyone can appreciate, obviously a PC's better, but you gotta fucking get all the drivers, and you gotta have it just so.
You gotta have, Al, you gotta tell David about your computer.
Yeah, I want to hear this. I want to hear this conversation.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you breathe on it wrong and shit, it doesn't work. And so it's wonderful to just bring home a copy or download a copy of Uncharted 4 and go, wow, this is an amazing overall experience and stuff. But I think consoles right now have mostly hitched their wagons to the graphics, and in that maybe they just feel they have to continually keep up. But for what I love about gaming, like I said, I'm enjoying Song of the Deep. I don't feel the graphics need to be better. Would it be cool? Sure, that's always cool, but that's not why I play games. But I imagine if you're like a hardcore, passionate about graphics, then maybe you're excited about what's coming down the line. But for me, I don't. Unless they're going to show me some gameplay that I can't do on Steam or PS4 or Xbox One, I don't feel compelled to run out and pick up one of the new boxes.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know about anybody else here, but, I have Xbox One, I have PS4. I am totally happy with them. I'm completely happy with them.
Yeah.
Some of the best games I played last year were on the Wii U. I know it's a joke of a console and people hate it, but they're, if you look at Bayonetta 2 or if you look at
Mario Maker and
Splatoon. It has been the home of some of the best console games in the last couple of years. And so, they don't look as good, but again, that's not why I play games. If I want to see beautiful visuals, I'll watch a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So,
No,
but that's I get that that's not the majority. People love their graphics, and I respect that. It's just that's not why I play games.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just played. I played Inside. Speaking of games that aren't like high end on the graphics, but that's probably been the best game I've played this year.
Yeah,
I hear it's great.
It is.
I saw that. I played about 2 hours worth of Hyper Light Drifter on Steam.
So good.
And I saw that it came out today on PS4, and so I'm going to pick that up tonight.
I'm picking that up.
What's that?
No, I say I'm going to pick that up.
Oh, it's weird. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So David, do you have time to talk politics? I know we were kind of.
We have 10 more minutes, and I got to go pick up my girls.
Do you really want to do this, Enrique?
You know what? I mean, fuck it. Why not? Right?
I love talking politics. Begin.
So I'm not familiar with what you and Mike were talking about today. I guess something happened on Twitter. So Mike, why don't?
I tweeted out this. Okay, so now look, I was a Bernie Sanders supporter. I'm mostly a liberal guy. If I could vote for Bartlett from the White House, from the West Wing, I would if he was a real person, right? And I really don't have a lot of patience for Trump. I think he's probably dangerous and could be a really bad president at best. But what I was expressing over Twitter the other day was that, especially with what happened with the DNC yesterday and Schultz and all of her behind-the-scenes kind of work to help Hillary, which is sort of what came out with all the WikiLeaks and shit over the weekend or what have you. I was basically suggesting that, because a lot of people say, oh, Trump is like Hitler in the late 20s and early 30s, and he's going to be the next Hitler and all that. I don't think we would allow that as a people to happen, but
I hope not.
I would say, of course. And I can't stand the guy, and I think he's dangerous, and I hope he loses to Hillary Clinton. But what I was saying, though, was I was suggesting that if indeed Trump ended up being the next Hitler and did these awful, atrocious things that Hitler did, or even half, or a third, or a tenth, it's possible to suggest that the lesser of the two evils would still be Trump, because what he represents is a very concrete evil that ideally can be defeated and recovered from. But if Hillary is able to win, and she was engaged with the DNC and their sort of backroom elitist, letting her get away and letting the people who support her get away with things, just like with the FBI and the servers that most people who are not in her position would be serving jail time for, it's another really big gouge out of the very fabric of, I think, what is America is supposed to be built upon, which is equality in a republic, and we don't have kings and queens that rule us, and we're all equal in the eyes of the Constitution. And that, all I was suggesting is that is probably more damaging to America as a whole, another huge rip out of that fabric of what the DNA of America is, than someone as awful as Trump Hitler Jr., because you can defeat Trump Hitler Jr. Yeah. But if we don't go after the elitism I worry that it's a continual slippery slope into the issues that make America great irrelevancy. So that's all I was expressing, which is not an easy thought to get across in a handful of 140 characters. But
no, it's not. That makes more sense the way you're explaining it now.
No. Yeah, I completely agree, and I back that statement up 100%, Dave. I mean, I feel the same exact way. I think that, like, what's worse is, like, a politician lying to your face and, like, doing all these bad things that you don't know about, or a politician making an ass of himself that you know is an idiot. Yeah. And you definitely don't want them in charge. It's a rough gamble for us Americans.
They're both
this election year.
They're both just some of the worst candidates.
Yeah,
you can imagine. They are terrible, and I think it's a reflection of. If we get deeper into politics, I think it's a reflection of just unchecked, unregulated capitalism. Because so much of what the American people have depended upon over the years to educate us, mostly the news and the media, is all so corporate now. And everybody is going after the ratings now that they just don't seem to care about actually what they're putting out through the airwaves in terms of affecting the way we think about the other side or affecting the way that we think about politics or who's running. And the fact that Donald Trump could basically get as far as he's gotten and maybe all the way to the fucking White House just because he's more entertaining than John or Jeb Bush. I mean, I tend to be very liberal, but I'll tell you what, if Jeb Bush was running, I would vote for him against Hillary. If Kasich
you know what? Yeah.
I would vote for Kasich in a heartbeat.
He was a clod. Come on.
No,
you know what? And I voted for his brother twice, and I am done with Bushes. I am done with Bushes. I am done with Clintons. I am done with all of them. I will tell you what, because I vehemently disagree, and I'm probably the only Trump supporter on this panel right now.
All right, so we're about to boot Mike here. I'm joking. I'm
going to let you. I would love for you. I've got to hear what you have to say, but I have to preface it by saying, growing up in Alabama, I've been an agnostic since I was a little kid, but I was raised Jewish, and every now and then you'd meet someone who goes, I've never met a Jew before. Like they're fucking aliens, right?
Oh my God.
It's kind of like I'm not kidding. You're the first Trump supporter I've ever met.
Well, let me adjust my yarmulke.
There you go.
And I'll tell you what, one day when I get brave enough on Twitter to actually, because I have a channel to run, and I don't want to get too into politics on a gaming Twitter feed, but one day I'm going to explain why I'm one of the few Jews that is not a Democrat and can't figure out why other Jews are, especially after this week when Congressman what's-his-face, Guam's going to tip over, said, Israeli settlers were termites, and I'm turning on the DNC, and I don't see any American flags, but I certainly see two Palestinian flags in the crowd. As a Jew, I have a problem with some of the stuff that the platform is. The thing about Trump for me is, if you get past what you read about, that which never happened in the 30 years that he was in the public eye, but all of a sudden, now that he's running for office as a Republican, he's the worst man in the world. The man's got business acumen, and right now, that's one of the things that we need as we're falling off of a cliff with multi-millions of people that are off the payroll off payroll right now and not even looking for a job. And a lot of people look at, I don't know how to explain this. It's easy to get wrapped up in, oh, well, he said this, so therefore that makes him this, and not actually listen to what he's trying to say. The guy's not a politician, and he's not polished, and there's no doubt about that. He opens his mouth, and sometimes bats fly out. There's no doubt.
But that's a problem, Mike, because you can't get into an international bar fight because you can't control what you say and how you say it.
But I don't think for a minute, honestly, and I'm saying this dead honest, I don't think he sits down with Merkel or whoever's running UK, and if they get into some heated argument, he flips the table up. The guy knows how to negotiate. He is a negotiator, so he may not. He's not gonna go crazy on the other guy, but he's also not gonna get pushed around. And I think, let me ask you guys this. In Germany and in France right now, there is all kinds of craziness going on, and it's horrible. It is absolutely horrible. Today, a freaking priest got beheaded in a church. Why is it that France and Germany aren't asking us for help right now? I mean, we have a government right now that won't even acknowledge the problem.
Well, probably, I'm sorry not to cut you off, Mike, but probably because they're feeling that we can't handle our own issues when, brothers are being shot down in the streets. And police officers are being attacked. How can we help other people when we can't even fix our own problems?
But
that's one of the issues.
You want to send American troops in to deal with the fact that one guy drove a truck down a street in Paris and killed about 40 people? I mean,
seems like a waste of assets. Yeah.
This kind of goes back in some ways to the media just kind of not really giving a shit about how they're actually communicating the story. All these things that have occurred are awful. Are these things that you really want to spend millions of dollars to get American troops overseas, and then what are they going to do?
Exactly.
Well, that is and that's a very legitimate point. I guess what I'm saying is it used to be a point to where they would ask us for help. And now nobody even wants to even want us to be involved.
What is the last scenario that has occurred in the world that you feel that America could actually help? That it reflects fully on us that we should have been asked for our help. Where did that occur?
I would say, well, I can go into a whole Israel and Palestine thing, which is. That would be probably that region right now is where our leadership is probably needed the most and is lacking the most.
Right. Okay. But you're talking about France and Germany as if we could.
Well, but what I'm saying is I guess my point was in the past, they may have come to us for help rooting out, ISIS leadership or something like that.
Do you know how many leaders of ISIS that the American government has destroyed with drone strikes all over the world?
Apparently, just chime in real quick. Apparently, the current president, has issued the most drone strikes out of any president. Like, apparently, he has a book that's given to him with targets.
It's like fucking Pokemon for him.
Yeah.
I mean,
Pokemon Go, but it's like
Pokemon Go with. Oh my god,
that's so bad.
But I mean, I hear you, but I mean, and I think the casualties from the drones have been atrocious and unacceptable and un-American. But it's not like we're not getting these targets. I mean, this is the guy who fucking killed Bin Laden, for God's sakes. It's not like he's been sitting idle.
I think there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to, too, that people aren't aware of.
Yeah. I want to ask you about Trump's business sense, because one of the critiques that have come at him, and I don't know how valid it is. So when you say, like, I grew up in the 80s like you did, and it's like, I saw Trump everywhere, and he was kind of the epitome of success and all that stuff. But then when you hear people kind of starting to try to tear him down, and that's what I'm wondering how much of it is just politics and how much of it's true. Whether it's not paying his bills and bankrupting other or causing other companies to go into bankruptcy. I read today that those little Trump girls that gave the song and dance, their campaign owes them $2,300, and they're not paying those fucking kids. And then all of the companies, his steak company, his airline, his magazine, all of these companies have basically failed. The question of, is he really that great at business? And a better question to me would be, do you really want the country run like a business? In a business, if people aren't operating at the top 1%, they get fired and laid off, and fuck them. Who gives a shit? It's brutal and it's ruthless. Do we really want to treat American citizens who are in need like that?
Well, the government itself is not built to do that. But at some point, the problem with the government right now is they don't get out of the way. And that's the one thing that I think he knows about is how to, because why would he want? He's the guy who didn't want government in his businesses, so why would he do the same exact thing to the people around him? I think one of the, for all the critiques of what's failed, people forget that there still is Trump Tower. There still is, some of the things that he has, the Grand Hyatt, Trump Tower, 40 Wall Street. He's got the International Tower in Chicago. I mean, there are things, the golf courses and stuff. Yes, he's failed at some things, but it's not as though he went from being a billionaire to being, nobody. And he's been in the public eye forever, which is part of what the only real issue I have with some of the stuff that's gotten thrown at him is, where was this stuff in the 80s? Where was this stuff in the 90s? When he's on The Apprentice for season after season, where was all this stuff then? Obviously, he's been in so much stuff. Not everything is going to be successful. I think anybody that expects every venture they have, like video games, not every video game that a developer makes is going to be successful, but it doesn't make you a bad developer. And so I think it's the same thing.
I'm not standing up in front of America and saying, let me lead you and take on the most powerful role in the world. And I'm great at it because I'm great at making video games. I mean,
I would support that campaign, Dave.
Yes, David, if you ran for president, I would vote for
David Jaffe for president.
Yeah, David Jaffe for president.
Well, at this point, I would say I do think I do better. I don't know. I think with Hillary we'll get more of the same, which is unfortunate because as much as I like a lot of things Barack Obama has done, I do worry a great deal about the corruption, in the country and the corruption that is coming from these politicians. I worry about Donald Trump more because I think it's fine to have bluster and it's fine to be have a lot of charisma and it's fine to look at that guy and go, oh, he's not going to take any shit or whatever, and that's great. But there is a level of education and intellectualism and intellectual curiosity, I think, that we should be demanding of someone who's going to be sitting in that Oval Office. And as much as it's fun to watch Trump and fun to go, oh, he's going to kick everybody's ass or whatever, when you actually hear him speak about foreign policy or speak about domestic policy, I mean, this is a man who's literally talking. I mean, it's like a fucking fantasy novel. He wants to build a giant wall, like on Attack on Titan, between America and Mexico. He wants to round up Muslim people and get them out of the country. I mean,
well, see, that's not all. That's also not completely accurate.
Well, tell me how that's not accurate, because I heard him at his primary rallies basically say, I love this line, until we figure out what's going on, the fuck does that mean? It's like, here's the checklist that once we hit these 8 boxes, we will officially have figured out what's going on. I mean, that could go on forever. But until we figure out what's going on, we have to seriously look at the Muslims in the country and basically getting the Muslims out of the country. I mean, this is not hyperbole. He said these things.
No, he was talking about not allowing them to come into the country.
Hey, Mike,
not rounding them up and kicking them out.
Mike, I don't mean to cut you off.
Not allowing someone of a certain faith to come into the country when the majority of... I can understand if you were to say anyone that associates or takes claim as a member of ISIS or is an ISIS member or an ISIS sympathizer, I think that would be smart to say, you know what, you don't get to come into the country because you're looking to do this harm. But when you take the biggest religion on the planet and say anybody, the vast majority of which are peace-loving people just like you and I, and say, you guys don't get to come to America because some of these people that you have, that you share the Quran with, have bastardized this religion. I mean, if we're going to do that, then no Christians get to come in either because of all the Christians that blow up abortion clinics, of which there are very few.
Right.
Gentlemen, just chime in real quick. I actually have to wrap up the podcast because I got to get to bed soon. So,
well, let me end by saying this. I appreciate that because this is what happens normally in politics is it devolves into a shitstorm of yelling and stuff.
Yeah.
I totally respect this conversation, and seriously,
Me too.
and I would love to continue it at some point. I absolutely would. But no, I totally have nothing but respect for this conversation.
I appreciate that, and I feel the same. And I think it helps that we hate both of them. It's not like either one of them are good. They're both shitty
that's
the reality.
This has been my challenge to people, which nobody's been able to do. I don't hate either of them. I have problems with Hillary. I don't hate both of them. I just want to see some people that if you're supporting Hillary Clinton, say something good about her. Nobody can seem to do that.
Yeah.
I can say good things.
I agree. I think she's the devil.
And I feel very badly, to be honest, for Bernie Sanders. I don't know what somebody has pictures of him doing bad things that made him do what he did this week and throw up his hands and say, "Hey, you guys slapped me in the face, but I'm okay. Vote for Hillary." Yeah. I mean, his supporters aren't even buying that. So
I think it's just if you look at how bad I do buy what he's saying, where he's like, to him, Trump, his story is, which I agree, Trump is so bad that he would rather get in bed with this awful woman and her awful cronies than Donald Trump. But I have seriously considered not voting at all or voting for a third party, and people online tear me apart because they're like, you're fucking with the Supreme Court and all this. And my answer, like I tweeted, which is just like, look, that's what we may need as a wake-up call in this country, to have a generation of awful Supreme Court justices and destroy a woman's right to have an abortion and all of these things, just so we wake up and go, shit, if we don't start taking control of our own government, the people in power who want to basically control us, they're going to do it to us every single fucking time. Mm-hmm. So it may be worth getting someone like Trump just to actually save the country. If we get Hillary, it's just continuing more of the same. Anyway, I got to get my kids. You guys got to wrap up.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, hey, you wrap up real quick. I'm going to grab something. I'll be right back.
All right. David, hey, thanks for coming on again. We definitely appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was fun to chat with you guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, we'll have to get you back on again soon. We'd love to have you back on as a guest again. And I'll tweet you. We'd love to get some codes to get into Drawn to Death and set something up so we can do a stream.
Real quick. This is what you're looking for, right?
That's exactly what I'm looking for. Thank you very much. And we'll hit Q up tomorrow or tonight, and we'll get it all rolling.
Okay. And if you'll sign my Mickey Mania book, I would be more than happy. This is yours.
Whatever. I will be happy to sign the manual for that terrible game.
Awesome. David, thank you again. Thank you again to my panel here, and to John, who had to go to bed early. Hey, remember to give us a sub, give us a like, and check us out next Tuesday. We'll be back on again at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're actually going to have Marcel Hatam. Hope I'm pronouncing his name right, from Crytek.
Marcel.
Yeah, Al, you know him pretty well.
Yeah, he's awesome, man.
Yeah, so we'll have Marcel on, and thank you again to David Jaffe for coming on and shooting the shit with us and talking a little politics.
Late. He was supposed to leave
I know. That's funny. That's why I was trying to wrap up the podcast. I'm like, wait, he's got to go pick up his kids.
Yeah, man, his kids are going to be like,
you sure you wanted to talk politics?
Like,
you could go on forever with that.
You're talking nerdy video games, and you're late. I'm the last person at the bus stop. I can hear it already, man.
Yeah.
What's going on about God of War again, weren't you?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, right.
But
yes, it was, and it's awesome.
Hey, I gotta say, that was cool. That was really fucking cool to have him on.
Yeah,
man. That was really cool to get perspective on the industry, gaming. What were you saying, B-Money?
I said he's so down to earth, man. Just talks about anything.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he is, and
these guys are, and that's one of the beauties of developers. They love to talk to gamers. Christian Allen was the same way. I can't wait for you guys to be able to talk to him like we did on NLG on Sunday, because that dude, like David, that dude was just down to earth. I mean, it's amazing to be able to talk to these guys and get perspective from them too, because Enrique said something on Sunday night that was really, really good, and it had to do with people not understanding the sweat equity in development. And it's one thing to say your own game sucked, but when everybody else says it and they haven't even played it, that's I don't know how I don't know how it rolls off some people's backs, to be honest.
Or off their tongues, for that matter, But hey,
it's a creator,
when you
gotta deal with it.
Well, yeah, and when you have to, make sure you keep your sub counts up and your followers up, you gotta come out and say outlandish shit a lot, So.
Yeah. Well, that's why I say we're the no subs no problem podcast. We just like to shoot the shit and now apparently talk politics. At the end of the podcast. But
who was it in the chat rooms? Daenerys said, "Everyone is quiet. It's just David and Mike."
Yeah. But that was awesome. Thank you again. Thank you again, David, for coming on. And we're definitely going to do a live stream of Drawn to Death. We're definitely going to do that. So we'll set that up, Mike, with me, you, and the folks over at Super Deformed Gamescast.
Yep.
Which goes live Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And I'm going to get my Mickey Mania book signed.
That's awesome, by the way, man. That was really fucking cool.
As soon as he said Knight's Christmas sale, I was like, I got that. Yeah. I got that. You can have it. Because I've already, it's all his, man.
Yeah. So yeah, everyone, thank you again for watching us. For sticking with us. That actually interview was supposed to go about an hour. So David, again, thank you for spending a little more time with us and engaging us and talking about video games.
He didn't even talk about Drawn to Death until the hour and 15-minute mark.
I know. That was really cool.
Yeah, I had the feeling that the whole podcast just could have been on his past, things he's into and everything else.
He was so mellow and glazed over the fact that he was like, as a game tester, and then I made a couple games. They were kind of shitty, and then I went on the Twisted Metal. I was too drunk to ask him more questions about Twisted Metal. I really wanted to go on that, but that's all right. Another time, maybe.
Well, we'll get him back on the show again. With that tweet you put out earlier, I'm like, with all those beers, was that from your house?
Yeah.
Dude, Al, you were holding it down, my friend, man. You were holding it down.
Who doesn't spend $220 at a liquor store on a Friday night? Wait, what is it? Monday night? Tuesday night?
Yeah, well, Eric spends like $1,000 on a bottle of champagne.
I don't pay for anything here, man.
South Beach, baby.
You just walk into any store and you grab it. That's how we do it.
Oh, that's it. The mailman, he does a moonwalk up to your step, gives you the mail.
Yeah, exactly. Don't you know everyone's happy to live here, and it's sunny, and it's great.
Always music playing.
Yeah, no matter where you go, there's Spanish on top of cars,
and there's thongs everywhere.
Yeah,
lots of thongs.
People rocking their Jesus Peace chains and open
Jesus Peace chains, like Jesus
open leopard print shirts.
Yeah.
Keeping it real.
Keep it 100,
shop, man. That's how we grocery shop.
Keeping it 100. That's
exactly.
All I see is Pootie Tang now.
Man.
Oh God.
You know what? We should do a movie podcast at some point. Just talk about movies or something.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So, gentlemen, thank you again. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us, man. Definitely appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. The truth of the matter was I was kind of being joking when I said save me a seat. It was so funny when Christian was on and you were, I wish I was in the room. And so I was
come on, man. Yeah,
you
had Christian
the shit out of me is what you did.
Dude, when he's fucking drinking Miller Lights, I'm like, dude, I got to get in this podcast. This guy, he's my kind of guy. He's fucking drinking beers and talking video games.
He DM'd me and said, I wish I was in there with you guys. I was like, all right, come on in. And I said, save me a seat on Tuesday. I was just kidding, but I appreciate, honestly, I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys. You guys are all my podcast family.
Yeah, man, absolutely, man.
Yeah, but speaking of that, before we go, I just feel like this needs to be said because I know there's a whole campaign against or propaganda campaign for neutral out there, and it's kind of and then no, it's kind of being stated, that if you're neutral, you don't have passion for anything one way or the other. You just
I don't. I hate everything equally.
You know what? Actually, real quick, Al, that is true. That is true. You're the one gamer I've heard like you fucking just give it to anyone.
Yo, man, if
That's
I
what
don't
you're
like
supposed to
something, I will give it to everybody, man, and everybody deserves it. No
That's
one is
how-
perfect. Absolutely, no one is perfect. I was the one
know,
guy on the super.
Within the first 20 minutes of meeting Al, we blocked each other.
No, that was like a couple of days later.
A couple days later.
No, I mean, I'll be the first one to call out, like, if I don't like, a AAA game, no names mentioned, that everyone's rooting for on a specific podcast that I may be a member of. I was the only one saying I didn't like it, but, it's not like I didn't like the game, but there's aspects that I didn't like, and I'll give it to everybody. I'll give it to the little guys, the big guys. I give a lot of grief to Nintendo, but I love Nintendo, and the only reason I give them grief is because of how great they were. I want them to get back there,
Right, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
They can do that. I know all these companies can do that. Everyone can get me on board and be a happy Al. But you know what? Until then, you see my cat smiling?
Nope, he's not smiling. The cat is saying booty.
Yeah, but it's a different type of lack of passion. So that's the whole point. Just because you feel neutral about something, all that really means is you don't need to tear someone else down and make your shit feel better.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
I never
Yeah,
did.
absolutely.
That's what that means. And this whole thing of they don't feel you don't feel passionate about one thing. No, come look through my collection.
I never
Look at look at my channel right now.
Yeah.
Look at what's going on over at NLG right now, and
Yeah.
tell me that we don't have passion. I got people coming to me left and right. I'm getting to a point to where I'm going to have to figure out how to make a schedule for our Twitch page, because I'm going to end up with 24-hour twitching. I mean,
That's
and
awesome.
guys that are wanting to do PC. I got a guy that wants to do PS4 stuff. We got Drake, we got HTK. I mean, don't come to me about lack of passion. My joy level right now in gaming and in what I'm doing is in a level that I wasn't even at a year ago when I started this.
Yeah. Hey, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. But, gentlemen, I don't mean to cut you guys off. I do need to go to bed.
Yeah. It's 11:30.
I got to get up at fucking 5:30 in the morning. But, gentlemen, thank you again. Al, B-Money, Eric, Mike, and John, who had to leave us early. Thank you again. Hey, and a big thank you to David Jaffe for joining us tonight. That was
Thanks
awesome.
to everyone who stayed in the chat, the 11 people. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
You can do us later.
Yep, and hey,
Appreciate
remember
it.
everyone, give us a like, give us a sub, tell your friends about Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, and we will see you next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have another industry guest on, and remember, gamers, to game on, but more importantly, have fun doing so. We'll see you guys next Tuesday. Peace.